This week on the Squatchers Lounge podcast. Yeah, we're going there. SOHA, the craziest place on Earth. Well, if you follow the Facebooks, that is. So sit back, relax, and we'll get right into our promised topic from last week. What's in your pack? And if you think we're missing something, head on over to facebook.com/SLoungePodcast and let us know your thoughts. And now the man who wishes somebody gave him a penny every time he shared his thoughts. The Reverend Jeff Kelly.
God bless it. Isn't that the truth? I would love for somebody to give me a penny every time I shared my thoughts with you. Well, welcome to the podcast, everybody. I am indeed your host, the Reverend Jeff Kelly, and we are so glad that you could join us here tonight. With me, as always, is Mr. Father David Batdof over there to my side. Needs to turn on his bottom letters there to make himself look all pretty.
Oh, yeah.
And thank you for the introduction there, sir. How you doing this week, buddy?
Actually doing good today. On time, weird, and a little bit less hirsute for myself.
Yeah, man, you
got a little wild hair. I know it's not like the Squatchers thing to do, but I was like, I haven't seen my chin in like 2 or 3 years. Let's just go for it.
Well, you got a month. You got a month to start growing that mess back before I start to put you to embarrassment. By the time
I doubt I will have the warrior beard in time for the Squatchcation.
Yeah, you might have a little problem getting the warrior beard going for the Squatchcation, but that's okay. We're still going to love you anyhow. I bet your baby Eli's kind of confused. I mean, every day in his life is like a huge percentage of what he's actually been alive, so all of a sudden there's this non-hairy beast coming to pick him up out of his crib. I bet that's kind of scary for him.
It kind of blew his mind a little bit. It's like, who's this guy who sounds exactly like Dad and has these glasses? That's weird. Okay, it's him. That's really weird.
Oh, it smells like him, but it doesn't feel like him. It's so strange. Anyhow, guys, we're going to be talking about, that's right, the Southern Oregon habituation site of Dr. Matthew Johnson's there in Southern Oregon, and Team Squatchin' USA's head, the owner, the 100% controlling interest, because I don't think anybody else wants to get on board with it, of Team Squatchin' USA's Southern Oregon habituation site there. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit, but first up tonight, David, I got to tell you, man, I saw this really cool article, man, this really cool thing, Neanderthals and humans overlapping for 54,000 years. Now we've talked about this before, that, sure, there's going to be chances like that when it happens. And here it is. We've got the Neanderthals and humans overlapping for 5,400 years. What's that really mean?
Well, I was reading this article. Actually, I haven't, this came out today, or was it today or yesterday? Today. And so I didn't have a chance to, look at the source data, and I read a couple other articles, and the really interesting thing about this new data is that we had already knew that we had seen Neanderthal admixtures from one genome or another, and basically what they're saying is that that's from probably an earlier meeting or earlier point of a point of intermixing. Then this new study is well into the future, after the climate change, and after the Neanderthals saw a huge bottleneck and a really their genetic diversity just disappeared at one particular point. There was a devastating something that happened, and it wasn't just us showing up.
No, as a matter of fact, one of the things the article was saying was, in the time that the Neanderthals were dying out there in Eastern Europe was also the time that the Cold Age had moved in, and a lot of it could have had to do with the climate pushing them into human populations, which caused more intermingling. And the original article here says, this is actually probably the second mixing, where we were talking about some 50,000 years ago in Asia, and then later in Europe again, 20,000 years again, there was some sort of a mix again that happened, and that's what they were trying to explain, was it was a possibility of a climate change would have pushed those Neanderthals in to mix in with the humans.
Yeah. However, it's not like it wasn't just a point A and point B thing, because we were here the entire time. So basically, it's really interesting to see these 2 points of data, as it says here, 30,000 or 20,000 years apart, at 50 to 60,000 years ago, and then something at 30,000 years ago. But also, they're thinking more and more along the lines of that the the quote-unquote extinction, because they say that that's potentially a bad word. And
right, more as an absorption.
Absorption, because they didn't have a lot of genetic diversity. They probably weren't going to make it. However, a lot of those traits and a lot of the cultures but of the two, the two cousins, basically, like got passed back and forth, and that was, I mean, that was huge in the Asian and European, like, differentiation from the sub-Saharan African, cultures and how things were going, and yeah. So anyway,
right.
There's a lot of dangerous inferences that people can make out of this. So it's a lot more studies is going to be done, and it's really exciting, and it really does open up a whole new, not even just a whole new chapter, a whole new encyclopedia on what is, what it means to, like, the history of human evolution, and it's amazing, and something that was hinted at but is now like, okay, well, now we have ping number 2, now a 3, maybe third strike, and we're just going to call it, okay, that happened.
Right, and had humans not made it at this point, then the human genes would have still been passed back into the Neanderthals, so Homo sapien genes would have still been along the lines with the Neanderthals, and they would have no longer been pure. It still would have been an absorption of Homo sapiens going the other way as well.
And like the
I guess unless they only bred with human females, I guess it would be a strange thing. How was the hybridization happening? Was it only on one side, but is it more dominant with Neanderthal to human versus human to Neanderthal?
Well, so because they're checking mostly mitochondrial DNA, and the admixture, like the way that it works, I mean, it would work itself basically back in. It could go either way. And there's some people saying, well, it's in the mitochondrial DNA, but it's always just the mother side, so that means that the Neanderthals, let's think about this, the sparse and dying out culture was the one that was the, quote unquote aggressor. No, it's more like there was probably less difference than we've ever imagined. Culturally there was differences, but to think back to, like,
the difference between mid-Asian and East Asian. Well, that's the kind of cultural
200,000. Yeah, 200,000 years ago. There's, there are no humans, modern Homo sapiens, and you think of 20,000 years ago, and this is going on, and there's probably, you think about 2,000 years ago, and people, in North America knew nothing about what was going on in Southeast Asia. This is, like, again, there's a huge cultural gap, but the peoples were probably very similar because, again, we did come from a very similar background, and just, anyway.
And like we talk about, check your sources and make sure that it's, at least something verifiable just before showtime, because I kind of threw this up on David. We did go out and check, and sure enough, here's another one from National Geographic that's a little more subdued. They're talking about 10,000 years earlier than not 60,000 years earlier, and so some people are taking a leap that the mingling was going on much longer than others are. But the point being is these are two national, not ancientorigins.com articles talking about the same type of mixing between the Neanderthals and the humans.
And you can actually read the at least the abstract from the paper publication to see where it came from and to see what the source material is going to say. I mean, a lot of these studies that come out are you have to be a member of the publication or have an academic access to it, but you can still get a lot of information from the abstract and then sort of follow the it's interesting if you read the abstract first and then start reading all these articles and watching all the inferences that people make. There's no wonder we have no idea about human evolution in general as Americans, because, like, again, here we have Discovery and National Geographic basically taking two separate spins and saying two different things, but the source article is it is what it is.
Right, down to their last references about 30,000 years ago, but here the other article is talking about 5,400 years ago. They were still mingling. So
they were saying that basically the decline from the point that they found, it took about 5,400 years from that point of this lack of genetic diversity to completely erase the species itself or the subspecies itself.
So what we were talking about before in pre-show, what people don't understand is the average Homo sapien in these days would have lived to be the ripe old age of 22, 23 if he's lucky. Been breeding since he was 12, if he could, because he had to have 18 children because one of them might live. I mean, literally, that's how many generations 5,400 years would span. How many is that? That's like 540 generations, probably, before the genetic diversity would actually be gone.
Well, yeah. So yeah, exactly. 400 or 500 generations is what that took. And if you think about that, and being in close proximity for what they're saying is, up to like 30,000 years with modern Homo sapiens, where we know that interbreeding was going on at least at point A and point B 20,000 years apart, so we can infer that in between that was probably happening too. You can imagine that, if there was a surplus of Homo sapiens sapiens, and then like the Homo neanderthalis, or even some people were calling it Homo sapiens neanderthalis, like that they were like lesser in numbers, it would make sense that eventually, like, their genetic diversity couldn't keep them to be a separate species. They would just die as they would normally, even if we hadn't have entered in. But their genes are going to admix, and they kind of live on in some of us today.
So the spiderweb genetics still works. The diversity of the genetic split happens. They all intermix until it all comes back to a single species once again, which doesn't really, extinction doesn't really work for the humanoid type Homo line. It's absorption, like we've been talking about.
And I just want to say that, the more finds and interesting studies like this that come out, it just takes away from what's the guy's name? The guy that does the Perfect Predator documentary that everybody keeps bringing up in the Bigfoot community, or the Neanderthal is Bigfoot, or the Denisova, which is a cousin of Neanderthal, like once more removed from us. Basically, it's like your cousin's cousin, right?
Come on, Lloyd Pye.
It really kind of takes a lot of that off the table, and it's going to take more of that off the table as we move forward. So again, let's start looking. If you're really into this, like, Sasquatch is a relic hominid thing, let's start looking back further, and then probably even Heidelbergensis. Let's just keep going back, because that's what we're going to have to do, because we're finding out that we're all kind of the same thing.
Right, exactly. Now, next up in the news, the news is kind of short tonight. It's actually going to be the last thing up. M.K. Davis is back again. He's back with this particular video here now of frame 352 from the Patterson-Gimlin film. Now, apparently there's a bloody track in the sand. Now, you see when he skews the light just right, he'll zoom in on it here in just a moment. You'll be able to notice that there's this track right there in the sand. Imagine that. Right there, where lots of animals run back and forth across that sandbar, there's a track there. Now,
and lots of ballpoint pens run back and forth across that sand there.
Well, the ballpoint pen's actually on the film line itself. And that was what he was saying, was all of the crops that come out, all the films that came out after this particular film was discovered, they crop it past this bloody print, or this red paw print, and this ballpoint pen, just to clean up the film. Doesn't really necessarily take out the track. Now, since I've been there...
Zoom in on the freaking Sasquatch!
Right. Now, I've been there, and if you haven't watched the Bluff Creek Project movie, shame on you, because it's a fabulous, hour-long, just fun ride. Go out and check the game trail trams that are there at the Bluff Creek Project Facebook site, and you'll find that there are big cats that run up and down this sandbar still to this day. And, well, if you get out Dr. Halfpenny's mammal tracking book, and you actually look it up to the cat section, you'll find that that's a cat track, not a dog track there, MK. So if you're trying to infer that Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin were hunting down Patty with their dog as they were taking this video, well, sir, I have news for you, sir. That's a cat track.
And they had already killed one Sasquatch with the dog for the bloody footprint.
Two have already been there. Yeah, supposedly he's saying that the massacre theory is coming back, and he has all the pieces to put together. So, that's another.
Well, got a lot of arrows, which is nice.
Yeah, a lot of arrows, usually do put it out. So that's really what's in the news, guys. I hate to say it, but it's been a light week in the news, and there you actually have it once again. David, my man, I got to tell you, I've been kind of scared, bro. Have you been noticing what's going on with this this Dr. Johnson Team Squatching USA, brother?
There's been quite a lot going on. He's getting a lot of action, a lot of press, and he's making a lot of a pushback on some people that maybe were, calling him out on some things.
Yeah, look, we invited Dr. Johnson to come on the program, okay? I extended my hand, and this was, when you and I first started back in the beginning.
Early on.
Oh, yeah, way early on. So over a year ago now, I extended a hand out, wanted to have him come on and talk to all about his southern area and his habituation there. And for 2 weeks, we had to keep chatting back and forth, and he wanted a phone interview with me and wanted to know my background. And finally, it just got to be too much of a hassle that I just unextended the invitation. It was just like, Dr. Johnson, if you're that much of a big deal, you're just too much for my show, and I guess we're just no longer interested in having you on the show. Have a wonderful day. And that didn't go over too well, did it, Dave?
No, it did not, actually, as I recall, because this was before my mass exodus from pretty much all of the main, all the big Facebook forums for Sasquatch, except for the Squatchers Lounge, just because I don't have time for all that anymore. But and I didn't then. I have less time now. So, but it's just the energy that it took to watch some of these things go on, and Team Squatching USA was definitely one of those areas for me where I just couldn't handle it anymore.
Well, here recently, people have been trying to locate the southern Oregon habituation area of Dr. Johnson's, and now he's invited quite a few people up to the area, and to be fair, to date, all of those people have kept their word. They have not spilled the beans as to exactly where this particular area is. However, it appears over in the Coalition for Science and Bigfoot Uncraziness page at Facebook, they're on the hunt. They are absolutely on the hunt for the site, for the Southern Oregon site. What are your thoughts on that, David? Hunting down a public area that somebody's actively squatching on.
Well, the area on public land does belong to
Sasquatch?
It belongs to Sasquatch for sure. Well, sort of, yeah. They're free to roam. Ingress and egress is probably fine for them. It's belongs to the government as far as I can tell. There are roads that were built by them going in and out. That we've seen photographs of Dr. Johnson using to get in and out of the area, and it's pretty much open to anyone if you knew where it was.
Right. And now, for my thought on the matter is, and if you don't believe me, you can go over and check out, some people can. He's blocked an awful lot of us from going over to the website. But you can look at the Team SquatchingUSA.com website, go out and check out his blog. And he's got pictures of the site posted from aerial views of Google. And, plenty of pictures are posted by him of the site and the views of the vista around the site. So, but he's demanded that people stay out of the area, that's his habituation area, and you have no right to be there and go there and mess with the Sasquatch and mess up my research. But is there research really going on there, or is it like we've been talking about, the woo of habituation?
The research aspect of it to me, I don't see research going on, and whether or not there's a quote-unquote habituation going on, you have to be aware of the animals that you're habituating. It could be, let's say that you're feeding some deer or something, and that maybe you're habituating them to peanut butter and jammy sandwiches, but you don't know that. He's always been on the kick of this, he was for a while anyway, this before and show a before and after picture. Well, put your bowls down, and then we always see these, here's a big footprint next to the bowl. Well, show me a before picture where that footprint wasn't there. You put the bowl down, it came up, left a footprint. Show me the before picture.
Well,
and he does. He takes pictures of the full bowl, and then he takes pictures of the empty bowl, and you can actually see different, like Mitchell Wilson's been posting some stuff that he's seen. You can see that a deer has been through that area. So
possibly
when you're
eating the peanut butter and jammy sandwiches,
possibly, and taking bites out of the apples and leaving them there, because the peanut butter is so much more delicious. So, but again, like when you put all of this, quote evidence out there, like I would expect people to do the same thing to me. You're going to look through it if you put it before, like here's the peanut butter and jammy sandwiches, and then here's empty bowls. Well, people can actually look at that and look at the surrounding substrate and be like, oh, well, there's a deer track that showed up here, or there's this and there's that. There's a lot of different things that people are going to do to that evidence, and I would want people to do that to mine. However, if you're doing that in this other forum, Team Squatching USA, that's frowned upon generally.
And if you've got a camera on site to take a picture of before and a picture of after, could you perhaps take a picture of during? I mean, you go there week after week after week after week and claim interaction close enough into your camp for you to be able to smell them as animals. And I'm not even talking about the Sasquatch stink that people have picked up. I'm just talking about the claim of smelling the animals close within camp. I got news for you. Animals got to be within 10 yards of you for you to be able to actually smell it like that.
Our olfactory senses are not that good as human beings. They're not that good.
So if you can hear the bipedal footfalls and you can smell the animals close enough to you and you've got a camera right there, are you claiming that the Bigfoot don't want you to take a picture? And if they can read your mind, wait a second, Dr. Johnson, aren't you one of mine speak? What are the Bigfoot telling you?
Well, they know he's not going to take a picture because he's already decided that he's not going to take a picture of the Sasquatch. So they understand that he would not do that.
Right, but if he's but what is the communication level that's going on here then? Because Dr. Johnson wants us all to believe that they can cloak. And we talked about the woo of cloaking and how they're possibly moving upon interdimensional traveling beings, and they're just robots that are being piloted by these interdimensional beings that have communication skills and want to have a communication with you. What are these Bigfoot actually talking to you about while you're there, Dr. Johnson? And has anybody else while you're there actually experienced the mind speak? Have you heard anybody experience the mind speak while they're there with this Bigfoot project, David?
Well, no, but the people who wouldn't talk to me and tell me about it anyway, probably, just because that's how that click kind of works.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that we're kind of the black sheep of the Bigfoot world, but it's okay.
We don't even get guests that agree with us, Jeff. We can't even get somebody who agrees with us to come on the show anymore.
Yeah, that's kind of. Hey, you know what? We don't need guests. That's the whole point of it. Is we're really here to keep it real. We're wanting to know what's going on in the background of these particular different genres of Bigfooting. I mean, this is a Bigfoot podcast, and we try to keep it centered upon, what's real in research, and we're going to get into that here very, very shortly. But we also have to address the absolute batshit crazy people out there that want to be the leaders of Woo. And I think, is Dr. Johnson trying to compete with Kwani? Is that where we at? Or is he the Batman of Woo?
Or maybe he's the Padawan learner of the Kwani Woo. That, I mean, like what is I'm not going to say everybody's experiences are their own and your experience is your reality, but when you try to share that with us and we disagree, you have to understand that our experiences, past experiences, present and future experience, future projections, like are our reality, and we're going to need a little bit more in order to change our understanding of the world around us than what you're going to be able to give us from your experience. So, if you're trying to create like this, I don't want to use the word cult, but this cult following, like, because we're not talking about a religious cult exactly, but like some people like accuse people of that, but like that's not really like
He's still trying to be a leader of people.
Yeah, so but it's more the cult of personality and not the cult of spirituality. Although there's a spiritual aspect, but that's so if you're trying to show people the way to your experience, that's like people have been really into that. There's a lot of people that are really receptive to that, but I don't know. For the people who have a different experience in life, and again, past, present, and future projected experiences, for me, aren't going to line up with what you're telling me unless there's a lot of data to back that up. And so it's not that I think that like he's crazy. I think he experiences what he thinks he experiences, or he's making it up. I mean, like, but that's a whole nother thing. I think that genuine experiences they're valid, but it doesn't mean that they're necessarily 100% correct for everyone. Like,
that's the thing. If it's not verifiable, then an experience is exactly what it is. I mean, yes, he has had other people go to the site, and he has verified by other people that there's animal activity going on there. But to date, to my knowledge, no one besides him have claimed to have laid eyes upon a Sasquatch in his area. Nor, to my knowledge, has anyone been there when they found prints. But I could be wrong about that one. I don't know if anybody's...
People have been there and not laid eyes on Sasquatch.
Right. And they...
But they were there.
Right. Supposedly the Bigfoot were there while they were there, but they did not see a Sasquatch. And to my knowledge, no one who has been to that location besides Dr. Johnson and possibly his direct family members have eyeballed and actually laid eyes upon a Sasquatch there. And that's, in itself is strange as well. You would think with the amount of activity that he takes upon there, and quite a few people have been there, that somebody else would be able to verify at least a print, a track, a sighting of something.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and so I guess my question, would be, and we know that, Jonathan Brown was invited to go, and then he was uninvited because he wanted to have a
protection.
Weapon.
Right.
But Jonathan Brown has expressed that he wants to take a specimen on his property, but wasn't going to do it there. And taking a person at his word, the expectation is that you're going to go and you're going to do this other thing. But for protection, which Matthew Johnson says that he's taken weapons for protection, which is fine. Although leaving them in the car isn't very good protection if you needed it. But the bottom line is that, if you're taking people there, what is the purpose of doing that? Is it to let people have an experience? Well, what is the motivation for showing somebody this experience? I would love to have that experience. I'm not going to shoot anything. I'll even leave my gun at home. I'm going to bring some bear spray. That's about it. But again, I'm going to come with that different experience of my own and in my life, and it's going to be hard to convince me that sound out there is a Sasquatch and not an owl, or that footprint was actually a creature that made it and not just something that happened naturally, or a rock that was overturned 5 years ago. So I mean, these are things that you have to deal with. But what is the purpose of giving somebody this experience? And I don't know. It doesn't sound like a paid Bigfoot expedition scenario.
No, but there wouldn't be any expectations in something like this. It's camping with a purpose.
And which is what it should be.
I guess. I mean, hey, keep going at Dr. Johnson, and at least give us some evidence that we can take to somebody and see that there's actually something up there. Collect some DNA, collect something off of those bowls, and stop blowing on the bowls to show us the fingerprints on them, damn it. That just contaminates the crap out of them with your DNA spit, you moron. Oh, I'm wearing my surgical gloves to keep from contaminating them, but here, look at the fingerprints.
It's like
I mean,
It's like a deep shower for that bowl.
I mean, just stop being a dumbass. Anyhow, one upon a time, we're going to get through, and hopefully somebody that we can trust will meet that Soho site, and we can talk to them and get some basically big-ass, some real data out of the place. But until then...
Oh no, it's the patented Squatchers Lounge bullshit alarm!
That's pretty much where we're at.
Let's take a deep, dark look into the fringe.
Jesus, you know what? I'm done with this stupid thing. This thing has gone haywire, man. I'm lost. I'm out of it. I'm done. Forget it. It's done. There we are. Anyhow, we're into tonight's topic.
And now for tonight's topic.
That's right. Wow! Hey, David, what's in your pack? We're going to talk about what the hell should you take away from camp while you're walking around looking for Sasquatch evidence. What you got in your pack, David?
Well, so here's, I mean, okay. How many different types of packs can you put together? Like this is, you got your overnight pack or your long extended all day hike or your quick excursion. Like there's so many different ways of thinking about this. But it's really interesting. I take a different approach to a lot of people. A lot of people keep a bunch of gear in their car or a backpack that's all packed. I'm going to show you how I keep my backpack. A lot of, like ready at a moment's notice. Empty.
Yeah.
You know why? If I needed to go, it's going to take me 5 minutes to fill that because I have everything
in a box.
In a box, but I'm going to know what's in there. And when I'm loading that thing, I have a little checklist in here, and I can see, okay, do I have 6 AAA batteries, 4 AA batteries? Is this charged? Is that charged? And I can take that one stop that I need with a full shopping list. Like, I need this, and this, and this. Boom, I'm on the road.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
Exactly. So, but what do you take with you? For me, on a short hike, if I'm going from camp out and around, I take some water, and I take this. This is just a sling camera bag. I can fit a little bit of extra stuff in here. This is mostly empty. I got my camera, a couple lenses, and that's pretty much it. If I'm going on a short trip, if it's less than an hour out and back or 2 hours out and back, this is all I'm going to take because I got plenty of time to get back to camp or to my car and get the rest of the heavy stuff that I don't need. I could just sling this one little thing over me and be done with it.
Right, but what's in your pack? That's the important part of it.
What? What's in the pack? Well, again, I like that. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's so many different types of hikes.
Right, but when I go out of camp, okay, now one of the things that I got to make sure that I leave with out of camp, damn it, like you said, is some water. That's an important thing. I got to leave with a first aid kit. I'm not walking away from camp for an hour without having a first aid kit in my pack. Now I actually carry the Army IFAC, the individual first aid, the improved individual first aid kit. That soldiers carry. It's a trauma pack. It weighs about 1.5 pounds. It's got, clotting bandages in it. It's for in case you get your friggin' arm ripped off while you're out there. But you don't need to carry quite so much of that way. But I'd have a tourniquet, some Band-Aids, and, a few butterfly stitches just in case you need them while you're out there that hour away from camp.
Exactly, and don't just take the little strip put on your finger Band-Aids. Say, let's take some big ones, because if you cut your boo-boo on your finger, I mean, you can almost just let that bleed out. Put it in a just you're fine. But if you need something bigger, you want to have that big strip. There's again, the tourniquet is a big thing. You don't need something to twist. There's probably sticks and twigs all around. Something that's in my pack is actually not in this box, which is, again, it should be in my box, but it's not, and that's why I like to load my pack, before I go, because if my pack was already loaded and I just put it on my back and went, I wouldn't have paracord, and that makes an easy that's usable for everything, almost anything you can possibly think about. But it does a good first aid tourniquet. You know, you can hang stuff from your pack, just tie it on. You can do all sorts of stuff. But paracord is just invaluable, and it doesn't weigh a thing. You might as well have it with you all the time.
Yeah, I always carry 100 feet of paracord in my pack, my day pack. When I leave camp, I have a first aid kit. I normally have a poncho with me, depending on what the actual terrain and temperatures and weather looks like, and 100 foot of paracord. Because with those three things, I can stay alive for a pretty long time. I can make snares out of the paracord. I can use the paracord to put a rubbish shelter together pretty quickly. I mean, I could really set up camp with 100 foot of paracord if I really, really had to. So, important things. What else is in your pack?
So, whether or not you leave with one of these things, like it's just a simple handheld GPS unit. This one's with Topo. It's got all the maps that I need. And it does a pretty good job, even when I'm deep down in the valleys on the backside, you know, the dark side of stuff. If you don't have one of these, that's fine. Bring a map, you know, roll it up, do whatever. Even though I bring one of these, I also bring one of these. This $2 will never break down, you know, or you know, however much you pay for a basic magnetic compass.
Yeah, the magnetic compass is a very, very important thing. I have several of them in different packs, and I have them for different things. Knowing how to navigate without a compass is very, very important as well. That's something that you can learn while you're out in the field. Follow your sun. You know, it raises in the sun, comes up in the east, and raises and sets in the west for the most part. You know, it's not going to be an exact degree run across the sky, but you know, you can check compasses by moss. A lot of times it'll grow on one side of the tree. It's not necessarily always north. You know, people get confused on that. Mushrooms will do the same thing. Mushrooms will grow on a certain side of a hill, so that as you're navigating up the way, you can figure out which way you're going by the different types of vegetation that are out there. But I'd much rather have a compass. What else you got in your pack?
Oh, what else? What else? Okay, because it's light and because I'm a dork, and because, you know, I was talking to somebody about, you know, like, okay, well, if you're doing serious field research, like not everybody has to go out and get one of these things, but I always carry, I mean, it's just a few ounces. A kestrel meter, it's a weather meter, gives me wind speed, you know, humidity. You can actually. This one was really expensive. This is like the $300 to $400 model. You can get them in the $150 to $200 range, but I mean it gets you like full on. I mean altitude density, everything that you need. Well, this is kind of like the a couple extra bells and whistles. This is like the sniper version, right? You know, like if you're shooting down range or whatever, but it's olive drab, which is cool. But you know, it gives you wet bulb temperatures. You can actually submerge this in water and get water temperatures and all sorts of other things. But that's not really, you know, it's mostly just that humidity and barometric pressure that if you give it a little bit of data, if you give it an altitude, it'll give you the barometric pressure and altitude density.
They have some analog versions of that, maybe without the wind speed, that I've seen on eBay for like $38 or $39. It'll give you barometric pressure and humidity and temperature and that kind of stuff. So you don't have to get a giant expensive one, but that's a good idea. I don't have one of those in my pack.
Yeah, if you're doing that serious field research and you're looking at, you know, vegetation and some of those other things, and that's just something that, you know, if everybody was collecting that sort of information, like the guy I was talking to and why I purchased this, he was like, you know, I can step out my front door, and there's a particular species of frog that we are trying to, you know, get data on. I can walk out my own front door. I can flip this thing open, and I can look at the conditions and tell you whether or not I'm going to be able to find this frog, because it's only particular conditions, you know, coming out of, you know, into the springtime that are going to trigger that. And if you get the perfect recipe for the trigger, like a lot of things happen, but the frogs come out because, you know, the right bugs come out because this happens, because that happens, and like, you know, it's that whole ecology thing, which is why that's just 4 ounces that I'm willing to kind of tuck in my bag, and somebody who's smarter than me can do something with that data. But we can all capture the data, even if you go, like, you know, go back to looking at past weather reports.
Well, that was one of the things that I tell people out in the field. You heard a howl? Really? Okay. What time was it? What direction did it come from? What was it like outside? Was it foggy? Was it cold? Was it windy? You heard a howl the second night? Okay, which direction did it come from? What time was that? What were the weather conditions outside like? And the reason that you want to know that type of information is because over and over again you can find a pattern. Night 1 they approach from the north, night 2 they approach from the west. Well, that way when you go back out there the next time, on night 1 you can approach them because you know they're coming from the north, and maybe stir something stupid up and get some activity that you weren't expecting.
Or
These are
night 3 they come from the south, and you realize they were traveling along the bowl, going around the,
Right, exactly. There's really important information that comes out of taking those little types of data down, and that doesn't mean that you have to worry about every grain of sand and every piece of type of food that was out there and every animal that you saw. But the important information, direction of where the howl came from, where you found the track, which direction was the track going? Was the animal moving to the east? Was it moving to the west? Which direction was that track pointing? It's great that you took the track. It's wonderful you took pictures of it. It's fantastic that you laid a measure and stick down to it. But where was the animal going is kind of more important.
Something also that you can do, like just before you go out, even if it's just generic, and you can find historic data, like if you were out on a trip and you wanted to look up every single day or whatever, but look up humidity, temperature, and barometric pressure when you leave and then when you come out. So yeah, temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, and like, was it raining or was it sunny or was it overcast? Basic ceiling conditions. That, like, if everybody would have grabbed that for every single Sasquatch sighting that we ever had, we would have this problem solved.
Exactly. It's gonna be solved by the little things. It's gonna absolutely be solved by the little things. Hey, what else is in your pack?
So something so simple. There's a lot of like really cool, like, ferro rods and this and that and the other and whatever. I take a teeny tiny little lighter.
Yeah, that's what I have.
I cheat.
I have a 6-pack of those things throughout my packs.
It doesn't weigh anything. You can keep all the fire starter that you want. Maybe use that in your, like, if you're doing an extended stay and you want to leave that as backup in a plastic bag in case everything gets wet. You want that to be dry and just to get yourself warm, like now. Okay, but like for just a quick out, and yeah. And you didn't have one of these. This is always in my pack too. This is actually just a basic knife that is my packing knife.
Mm-hmm. Blade. Something sharp to cut your paracord with.
Something sharp to cut your paracord with, or to cut down a stick to tie up your paracord to make a tourniquet out of. I don't know. Like, right. But there's so many reasons why you might need that.
Right. You can use the paracord to tie it to the end of a stick to stick it to a pig. Stick it into a pig, then you can have dinner. Then we can live in my rubbish shelter and stay all night.
So another thing that's really, really important, speaking of, like dry, this, that, and the other, is, I always take, oh, shoot, it's on the wrong side now, something that's very simple, and people, like, so they're not in here, take an you could wear the same clothes for weeks and weeks and weeks, take an extra pair of socks. If your shoes get wet, put them by the fire. If your socks get wet, change them. Take them off. I don't care if you're dirty socks in the ground, whatever. Like, don't wear wet socks. I also take just a light chamois because, chamois. Like, if you fall into a creek, you can
face down.
Yeah, face down into a creek. You can just go like Kip Morrill, male supermodel, and get down to your skivvies, and basically, like, dry yourself off, and that while you're drying your clothes out, again, take that little lighter, start a quick fire, dry out your shoes. Hour later, you're like back on the trail. Even if you're in, a cold
Dude, are you kidding me? I got my big fat butt up out of the creek, and I walked it back up the rest of the way to the film site. And by the time we hung out there, 20 minutes later, my BDUs were dry, my canvas shoes were dry, my socks were dry because I took my wet feet out of them and set them there to friggin' dry in the sun for 20 minutes, dude.
Yeah. Well,
if you wear the proper clothes then you're not out there in your jeans and your friggin' cotton polo shirt that's weighing 90 pounds because it's soaked with water. And then your stuff dries in like 15 or 20 minutes and all as well.
And that's important is to wear appropriate clothing. But again, also like the quick, dry off of the hair. Like, I'm thinking more in that, like you're gonna
never leave without your towel. Always carry a towel.
When you're out there and it's cold and anything extended exposure when you're wet under 45 degrees is you're looking at hypothermia. So that's just something that I think of because it is wet and it is cold up here. So I always make sure that I can get myself dry, even if I'm just wearing socks, on my weenie and husband trying to find her.
Socks on the weenie around the fire. Now that's funny. I think we could probably get a Squatchcation dance going with you.
That might take a couple Sasquatch juices.
Couple of Sasquatch juices, yes, for sure. So that's the one thing too. Your pack is important, but the very first thing you should look at is what you're wearing out there. Okay, I was a dumbass to tell you the truth. The first trip up to the Sierras that I went with these fellas, I was in my BDUs. I had the appropriate clothes on, but I didn't have the right shoes, man. I was in friggin' Chuck Taylor Converse All-Stars, dude. And I got news for you. I was all beat up in the ankles and in the feet because I didn't have any traction on the steep-ass climbs and the walks on the roads out there. That, the appropriate footwear for going off trail is definitely one of the first things you want to look at.
Yeah. Well, so there's two sides to this. Like I like to go on these long crazy monster hikes or sometimes or whatever. At the car, I like leave the chucks in the car, something that's comfy for you that lets your feet just sort of hang all out there. Like I'm gonna strap in and bind into my leather hiking boots with all waterproof, not water resistant, waterproof. Like boom, they're tied in there. My ankles are tight. I can barely, it's like hockey skates, right? But once I get back to the car, man, my feet just want to get out of the socks, get out of the shoes, get into something comfy, and that'll it just helps you relax once you get back. 'Cause sometimes, man, you're tired.
Yeah, and powder your feet, people. If your feet aren't going to be wet, powder your feet before you put them in your socks. You'll love me for it later. Okay, prevent blisters.
That, and especially in those waterproof boots, because once your feet start to sweat in those waterproof boots, well, guess what? That water stays in there, and then you get stank foot.
Yeah, stank foot. But yeah, powder your feet, people. That's an important thing you learn in the Army. First thing, they hand you a bottle of powder and then your boots, because the bottle of powder is much more important than your boots are. But protect your feet. It's important out there. What else you got in your pack?
So for the extended, okay, if I'm gonna load down, I'm gonna be out for a day plus or whatever. I'm not near the car to where I'm gonna go back and where I can't get back and then go back out again. Or if you're taking, say you're gonna hike into a camp, you're gonna leave some stuff, but so your pack is gonna have to, a very light and manageable, just evidence collection kit.
Now, don't go all the way through that yet, because we're going to do that next week. What you should have in your evidence collection kit. So
it's very simple, and this is something that I actually do just not open because I have never found the evidence to have a cause to open this. But it doesn't weigh much. So yeah, and for as far as evidence goes, a lot of people, they put down a lighter, they put down their cell phone, they put down something, their foot next to a footprint. I think I brought this out a while ago. People, this doesn't weigh that much.
Bring a tape measure.
I understand that is larger than your cell phone, but how long is it? It must have been a size 16. No, it was 18.5 inches long. That's what I want to know. And it was 6.5 inches wide. That's just a simple thing that you can toss in there. I mean, if you're doing long range backpacking and you're counting ounces, this isn't something you want to bring with you. But if you find something, do it. Somebody says, "Oh, the trees were broken off 9 feet in the air." It's like, okay, show me. That's 9 feet in the air. No, it was 8.5 feet. Okay.
Right. Well, that 6 inches is kind of important, because the difference between a 7-foot man and a 7'6" man is a 0.0001% chance of somebody being over 7 foot tall. So to see a 9-foot Bigfoot or a 10-foot Bigfoot, your percentage rates of seeing a 10-foot Bigfoot are like so much smaller than seeing one between 7 and 9 feet. Agreed?
Agreed. So here's another thing, and I've split this up because one of these is really heavy, and if I take a picture of something, I can come and look at home. I'm really interested in vegetation and plants, and especially edible plants. This is a huge book. It's laminated. It's meant to go in the field. Freaking thing weighs 3 pounds. I'm not taking a 3-pound book into the field, even if it's waterproof and I can look at the pretty pictures in color or whatever. This is great for home, and I'll take a picture and I'll come back and I'll look at it later. But I do take these non-waterproof, really light paperbacks, which is it's a very simple tracks and scat of the Pacific Northwest. And actually, it's a foraging manual field guide of edible plants that we can eat.
Ooh, nicely done.
Which is it's just super simple. I put it in there, and this weighs less than half a pound, and that's worth taking with me because if I find something like, oh, I've never seen that before, but it looks like this that's edible, or you can, or if you want to try to take something home and actually use things that you can eat in the wilderness. Well, this will deter you from the things that they even have. I mean, most of these manuals say, well, this is this, but unless you know for a fact that's what it is, it also looks like these 3 poisonous plants, and don't eat it,
Right.
Which is important information to have as well.
I carry this one. I have Dr. Halfpenny's field guide to mammal tracking because I like mammal tracks. I like animal stuff. I like the cat tracks. I like to know exactly what I'm looking at. Oh, look, kitty cat tracks. Cat, dog, cat, dog. That's the way that works. Anyhow,
and also on the back of the paw, it's what is it, like 3 bumps, 2 bumps?
Yeah, 3 bumps for a kitty cat, 2 bumps for a cat, 2 bumps for a doggy.
That's a really, if you're not sure and you look at that track, it's like the back part of the pad, because I mean it's got 4 toes and a pad. I mean it's a mammal. They're pretty similar in the way that they walk and everything. So 3 bumps is a cat, boom boom. 2 bumps is a dog. Boom.
Right.
There you go. And whether it's a coyote or a domestic dog, we can talk about that later. Yeah.
Who cares? What else is in your pack?
I like the audio notes. This is something that I just tossed in here just in case. Like if I was going on a long thing and I actually wanted to write down something that was like not just quick, like everybody's got a cell phone. If you have a way of charging it in the field, or we're taking our audio recorders all the time. If you have it, like I have a set printout of things that at a point of evidence that I would want to know about my expedition and about the points of interest in that expedition, and I can run through that list, and it includes some of that weather information and some other things, and just in order go off of this list that's printed, and I can just speak it into a microphone and catalog it later. And you could do that in a very scientific manner, and put it together in like a whole document if you wanted. Like, this is my research as a whole. Boom. Well, so far I haven't found anything that I need to document, but
hey, we're going to fix that here real soon on the Squatchcation.
The Squatchcation, I would love, even if it's just going out and showing people.
I want to find some tracks. I want to find some prints. Yeah, I want to find some prints. Some sort of physical evidence that the creature has been there.
I think, well, because I've been neglecting my Whatcom Sasquatch site, and it would be a great resurrection. It's even just whether we find anything or not, because I mean that it's going to be what it is. But going and documenting the different areas in the way that I suggest that people do it on that Facebook page, like then, I mean, like that's a perfect excuse to do that, and for practice for me, because I'm not a field biologist. I've just, learned about this online and talked to some field biologists, and like it would be great for me to go out and actually apply that in a way that makes sense, and that would be a good thing to do on the Squatchcation. That's happening, Jeff. Thank you.
Absolutely. We're going to, dude, I can't wait. The Squatchcation is going to be so much fun. If you guys are not aware of what's going on, I guess we've actually kind of spilled the beans on Facebook here this last week. I will, let's see here. Let me bring this little beautiful thing up here. That's right, the Squatchcation. David Batdof and I are going to be joined out by Chris York and Doug Hudson. First stop is going to be at the Browns, thermal Bigfoot footage there in, I guess that's Western Washington, Lower Washington.
Inappropriately called the Grays Harbor thermal footage because it's only slightly near Grays Harbor.
Right. Well, the Browns have invited us out to do the first leg of the Squatchcation, and that's where we're going to go in. We're going to go in and do some documenting of the area and of the location and talk to the Browns and see if we can't get some other people to open up and admit to us that they've actually had some things going on in the area as well. Lots of people have been out to the site and said that they've had activity, so we're really looking forward to getting some boots on the ground there. What are your thoughts?
Like the hot time too. I'm excited, and like the beautiful thing about the Squatchcation and anybody who's going out and doing research, like leave yourself open. Like if it's just not happening in one area, I mean, yeah. Well, we're through Plan M for where to go, like after the 2 days that we've kind of like set aside to be at the Brown property. But if it's happening at the Brown property, we're not gonna go to Plan B.
Right. Well, that's exactly right. If it's happening there at the Brown property, we're gonna be there through the entire Squatchcation. But if not, we've put some feelers out to try and get up on the Lummi Island. And or at least in the Lummi area, and investigate the Bigfoot sightings and the Bigfoot reports coming out of that area as well. And it's looking good so far. So that's what's happening with the Squatchcation so far from us.
Yeah, I'm just excited to just get out there and just be the Squatch for several days. It's gonna be awesome.
Dude, it's gonna be friggin' fantastic, man. It's right. You and me in the field, and then you throw in Chris York and Doug Hudson. Oh my God,
I don't even know. Like I'm scared.
And Car on Fire might end up being the truth of it back and forth. You never know. Good God, David, we have burned through another hour of the podcast. Bam! Just like that, man. Dude, can you believe that crap?
It happens every time.
That's right. Now, next week we are indeed going to be talking about what the hell should you put in your Bigfoot collection evidence collection kit? Because to tell you the truth, my Bigfoot evidence collection kit consists of me not spitting on it, a couple of Ziploc baggies. I think I've got a couple of maybe not used Q-tips and a couple of non-sterilized bowls. So we need to talk about
this
evidence collection kit. That's what we're going to be doing next week. In the meantime, Father Batdof, you're telling me you're going to be writing a theme song for the Squatchcation. Did I get that right? Pre-show?
Yeah. We're going to work on this. It has to be epic. I mean, for an epic journey like this, we need epic theme music, and that's coming.
That's right. So don't worry about it, guys. The Squatchcation is definitely happening. The tickets are already purchased, so I'm going to be there at one point or another. If you had to show up to pick me up at the airport, I'm just going to take a cab to the house, so one way or the other, watch out. I gotta tell you guys, I am a man of my word. Last week, I promised to start seeking into dowsing. And I wanted to become at least a certified dowser before we got out to the Brown property, so we'd be able to properly try and expand upon the land of Woo. Well, my dowsing pendulum actually showed up. You are not getting sleepy. You are going to watch the Squatchers Lounge podcast over and over again. You are going to tell your friends about the Squatchers Lounge podcast. Facebook.com/SLounge for this Facebook page. I don't know if this is working or not, but I'm giving it a hell of a shot.
I've totally zoned out on it, actually.
Guys, that is absolutely going to do it for us this week. David, my man, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for having me. I mean, for the last God knows how many episodes.
God, it's like 50 episodes between the two of us now, I think.
That should be criminal, actually.
It's been an amazing journey. It really has. For Father David Batdof and myself, the Reverend Jeff Kelly, thank you so much for watching the Squatchers Lounge podcast. Season 2, number 32. Good God, we've already given you more episodes than your favorite television shows. Can you imagine that? Thanks for watching, everybody. May the Squatch be with you.
idea what I'm in for.
Just remember, what happens on the Squatchcation ends up on YouTube.
Let's go to Vegas.
We're going to the casino.